Thank you. So we're going to call our meeting to order. Today is March 26, 2019. This is a business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee. If I could ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Glasgow?
Here.
Mrs. Hildebrand? Here. Mrs. Hoskins? Here. Mr. Bob Jones?
Here.
Mr. Tony Jones? Here. Mrs. Shaw? Here. And student representative.
Thank you. And if you could call the calendar.
On Monday, April 8th, there is a budget hearing with the town council during the town council meeting. Tuesday, April 9th, there's a school committee business meeting. April 15th through the 19th is spring recess and no school. And Tuesday, April 23rd is a school committee business meeting.
Thank you. And next are presentations and recognitions. Dr. Auger or Dr. Hubbard?
Amber will start.
So we have
Microphone, sorry.
We have some great recognitions again this evening. First, senior Chase Goulet was awarded second place in this year's very competitive Wickford Art Gallery Association scholarship competition. For placing second, he received a scholarship in the amount of $1,000. Sophomore Gabriella Neves was awarded first place in this year's Donate for Life poster contest. She will receive a $100 Amazon gift card, and with this win, it makes her the second annual time that she placed in this contest. Last year, she placed second. And congratulations to Alice Dunning. She is at Wickford Middle School, who won the Rhode Island Spelling Bee Championship. She is off to the National Championship, and once done with that, Dr. Auger would like to invite her to a school committee meeting.
Thank you. I have a couple myself. First, last time we reported out on the great work of our winter sports team, but one thing had not happened yet, and that was that North Kingstown High School basketball won the state tournament. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to Coach Aaron Thomas, who I believe is here tonight. He is the Rhode Island Interscholastic League Coach of the Year. So kudos to you, Mr. Thomas, and thank you for all your great work, and congratulations to the team as well. We also have Mr. Rich Garland here tonight. Our DECA program has been very successful, and they are also looking to go on to the next round in their work. And Mr. Garland is here to talk a little bit, to recognize a few students, and to talk a little bit about the program. And there is an item on your agenda for a vote this evening, too.
This is on. Great. And unfortunately, I don't think you can see my slides, can you?
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'm Rich Garland. I'm a teacher here for business, finance, and global business economics. I'm accompanied by some representatives of the 62 people that are in my DECA club. If you're not aware what DECA is, it's a worldwide association, about 20,000 students, both college and high school. And it's an association that prepares students, young entrepreneurs, and business professionals. It is about the closest thing that we have for project-based learning and bringing an authentic classroom in place in the high school. So I'd like to just introduce you some of the 62 members. This is Louise Offerson, Mary Beth Clark. She is the valedictorian here at the high school. She's also the statewide DECA vice president and also the president of our club. And over here is Mary Bertlin and Fiona Eves. They are both winners also at the recent state competitions. And Jacob Roy, who's the vice president of the club. Again, we're 62 members. I'm just going to take very little time to take you through DECA. I just announced really what it is. On March 1st, I brought 58 of the 62 students to compete in the statewide DECA championships. You'll see all the 15 industry events. They do a lot of preparation to prepare for the event. It's a lot of studying, a lot of research, and they competed in events from accounting applications to finance, hospitality services. sports, marketing, and entertainment. And the numbers next to them are all the 58 people that competed in those events. Out of those 15 industry events, 58 students, we had approximately 48% of all the students actually medaled first, second, and third place, which is really good. Now, this is a backdrop of against 400 other students throughout Rhode Island in all the chapters, both public and private high schools, to include Enrican. You'll see in the white all the first and second place winners. So 21 first and second place winners, and those first and second place winners get invitation to go to the International Career Development Conference, which is about 10,000 students that compete from all over the world. China, Brazil, Canada, usually walks away with the lion's share of all the awards, and pretty much every state in the union. And so you see some pictures there. That is from the Anaheim conference. And again, 10,000. They have about 1,000 judges to go. It's very rigorous. They have to dress with the blazers, very professional. Men have to wear ties. Girls can't wear, well, they must wear, no open-toed shoes or whatever. They have to be very professional. They test, and then they move on to role plays, and there's about 1,000 judges come in. So they'll go through the initial test, they'll go through semifinals, and then finals throughout the night. If they make it to the stage, last year it was at the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. If they make it to the stage and they get in first place, they're pretty much guaranteed scholarships. So we've been invited to the ICDC, and it's from April 26th through May 1st. And so actually, I'll be bringing 19 students, hopefully, if you agree. This is kind of like the venue that they'll go through. It's very rigorous. If you looked at, they had the sailor hats from Rhode Island. That every state, every country brings something. They have these pins as well as hats that represents the country. Since Rhode Island's very small, the minute, Mary Beth can help me out with this, but the minute you walk in, they pin each other. There's thousands of students outside the conference center before the main event. And everybody's saying, get the Rhode Island hats. So we paid about $3.50 for them. You guys sell them for what, 40 bucks? Right, she sold them for 20, all right? She's not aggressive, but yeah. We had students sell them for $40, and that's okay. They're entrepreneurs. So, and then at the last is the grand event. So there's also a large amount of corporations and universities and colleges that go and try to recruit these students. They go after the DECA students because they're the best of the best. They're committed. So I have everything factored out in terms of the cost. I made $5,000 by doing financial education for the Better Banking Association. And that was a grant. It was on public broadcasting, and also there's about 8 lessons out on their website. They gave me a $5,000 grant for that, so I funded the registration for all students. There are 2 chaperones. One's my wife. She's a nurse, and that helps out, right? So she'll do the bed checks for the women, and then I'll do the bed checks for the guys. We never leave their side, right? And then the households, I got commitment from all the parents. And I actually, because of the $5,000 grant, I was able to bring down their costs. So it's $623.06 for the entire trip for all the students. And then my employee reimbursement is on the bottom. My wife's driving in from South Carolina. She lives in South Carolina for 6 months, right? She's older than me, so she retired already. She robbed the cradle. But, yeah. To save expenses, like $500 to fly out, so she's going to drive in, right? So those are the expenses. Got everything covered. We just look for your approval, and from there, we're ready for it if you are ready for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on your success, and we wish you the best in the tournament. But so I'll start by asking if I could have unanimous consent to move item G up for approval at this time. I have no one's objecting. So, if I could just have you restate that as a motion to approve item G. Motion to approve. Okay, so I have a motion to approve item G. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Ms. Hildebrand. Any discussion? Okay. Other than to say congratulations and we wish you the best in the tournament. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Off you go. Good luck. Okay. Okay, so next, we have citizens' comments. We do have a sign-up over there. If you haven't signed up and you want to speak, we're going to ask, last time our clerk had a lot of trouble understanding the names of people who came up after and hadn't signed up. So I'll just ask, if you decide you want to speak after someone has spoken and you haven't signed up yet, there's a second sign-up sheet over on that corner. If you could just write your name and address down for her before you come to the microphone. So the first person is Sue Warburton. And again, if you could just speak your name and address for the record for us. And we ask that everyone please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I do have a clock here just so you have an idea of where you're at. That's just to make sure that everyone has equal time and we treat everyone equally.
Good evening. My name is Sue Warburton. I live at 1595 South Road in East Greenwich. I am here tonight representing the teachers of North Kingstown as their president with a letter from our executive board. Dear North Kingstown School Committee, North Kingstown educators are concerned about the continual reduction of resources for our students over the past several years. The lack of resources is affecting our ability to deliver the top-notch education for which North Kingstown schools are known. All levels of the school department have been affected by cuts in recent years. Our elementary schools do not have full-time librarians, art, music, or physical education teachers. Davisville Academy does not have a library with books or playground equipment for students. At the middle level, math support, reading teachers, and family consumer science classes were eliminated. Wood Tech was significantly reduced at Wickford Middle School. The Spanish program has been reconfigured in such a way that the students are not receiving the level of instruction they have in the past. Eventually, this will affect the advanced placement Spanish program at the high school, as well as the number of students who graduate with the state seal of biliteracy. The learning environment at the high school is plagued at both the beginning and the end of the school year, with unbearable classroom temperatures in the second and third floors. The November 2018 bond referendum question 4 to finance capital improvements, construction, renovation, alterations, and other improvements for town and school projects was approved. But the school department has chosen to replace the outdoor athletic track before installing the air conditioning to improve the long overdue temperature control conditions. District-wide special educators and special education teacher assistants have been reduced while caseloads are increasing. Special education programming for our highest need students has suffered with staff reductions and lack of administrator approval for necessary evaluations, equipment, and materials. The need for social and emotional supports for our students is considered a priority, yet there are no increases to the 2019-2020 budget to address these concerns. Meanwhile, funding from state aid, which was reduced by more than $500,000 in November of 2018, has been restored with a funding formula correction from the Rhode Island Department of Education for the 2019 and 2020 budgets. However, the programming that has been cut over the past several years has not been restored. I believe my time's up, and Liz Cruz is going to finish for me.
My name is Liz Cruz. I live at 2615 Boston Neck Road. And while educational resources for our students have been cut, there are additions to the budget that do not directly help the students in our classrooms. Last August, after making significant cuts to the middle school programming, an assistant controller was added to assist the budget office at a cost of $112,000. Later in the fall, an expenditure of nearly $10,600 was approved to redesign the rented office space of the business office to accommodate the newly hired assistant controller. In the 2019-2020 budget, it is proposed that an additional principal be hired to help the principals at the elementary schools next year. This expenditure is a $130,000 line item. Additionally, NKSD legal costs in 2014 were approximately $200,000. In the 2017-2018 fiscal year, they have risen to over $1.5 million. It is the position of the North Kingstown teachers that the school committee should restore programming for the students in our classrooms, expand necessary social and emotional supports, and place students as the priority above administrative and other ancillary costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just say, as we say with everyone, we don't have a back and forth here. There's some things I'd love to respond to in that. I'm happy to meet with you folks separately, and maybe at a later meeting in the superintendent's report, Dr. Ogier could address some of the things that you brought up more specifically. So next person is Pam Panero. I think I might have said it right this time. Okay, sorry.
Pam Panero, 710 Slocum Road. Just gonna hold it. I'm here to speak about the boundary proposal for the elementary schools. I have accepted that my kids will be going to Hamilton next year. The question you have before you tonight is, will their sacrifice make a difference or not? Will all of these meetings have been worth it, or have they just been a formality, a necessity because you have to let us speak? Option 1 does not accomplish your goals. You are replacing one group of kids with another for the difference of 8 students. This is not a significant difference to Stony Lane's capacity. You are relying heavily on a very unknown lottery bus to increase the numbers at Hamilton. You are looking for 50 volunteers. Where is the data to support this? Where is the evidence to support such a proposal? I have been offered no such facts. Why are we relying on this? This is not guaranteed. It is a gamble. You already said you are short on buses, so why would we allot another bus to an unknown lottery proposal? Without accomplishing these 2 goals, in my opinion, you will be redistricting again in the near future. Now, there is option 2, which includes more guaranteed students moving. This actually accomplishes your goals for Stony Lane and Hamilton. Your capacities in all but one school would be mid-80% if you, again, eliminate the lottery bus. This option allows for some flexibility for 3rd through 5th, even if transportation isn't provided. It aligns the middle school boundaries, which is a benefit. There will be years, if option 1 is approved, that students will only be entering middle school with 3 to 4 peers. That is a burden to those few, putting them at a disadvantage in those critical middle school years. This morning, I was talking to my children about the redistricting and the likelihood of them going to Hamilton. My daughter, Sophia, who will be in 4th grade next year, said, "Stony Lane is my school. I love my school. This is going to change everything. It's just not going to be the same. Most of my friends are staying." Like a responsible parent, I sold Hamilton as an amazing opportunity, but I should not have had to. If this committee wanted to actually minimize student impact, you would move Forest Park to Quidnesset and leave the rest of us out. If you actually want to accomplish your goals, I request that you vote for option 2 without the lottery bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, that's all I have signed up for citizens' comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak who didn't? Okay. If you could come up, and as I mentioned before, if you could just write your name and address on that paper on the corner of the table, just so our clerk has it. Thank you. And if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Michael Durer. I live at 202 Brookside Drive. We are the parents of a Quidnesset student, and we are not satisfied with her education. I addressed you recently with our concerns, and I also emailed you multiple times, so I will not rehash our concerns tonight. However, I would like to express my family's disappointment in what appears to be the removal of the lottery bus option from tonight's vote. Dr. Ogier's proposal for the bus provided us with some hope that our concerns were being heard and action was being taken. Without the bus option, we face more years in a struggling school or the uncertainty of a possible transfer, which you've said will probably be more difficult after tonight's vote. On a separate note, my wife and I think it's very interesting that there has been no real discussion regarding the fact that all of this redistricting talk is occurring because Forest Park is projected to be over capacity. After looking at all of the numbers you supplied, there's a glaring option that no one has really addressed. Why are Forest Park students being moved to Stony Lane rather than to Quinnesset, which is currently only around 70% capacity? Stony Lane is currently around 90% capacity and about 4 miles away from Forest Park. Quinnesset is 2 miles away from Forest Park. Doesn't it make sense that moving Forest Park to Quinnesset would be the better option? If it doesn't make sense, please explain why. The argument that adding more students to Quinnesset is a good idea isn't a good idea because it would create more commotion in an open classroom building is hard to digest, seeing as how you're planning to move more students to a more crowded open classroom building at Stony Lane. If discipline issues are the concern, why couldn't you move more resources to Quinnesset to handle the increase in students? You've already said you're willing to move more resources to Hamilton if the need arises. In short, please explain why Quinnesset is acceptable for the students who are already there, but not acceptable for Forest Park students. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hadn't signed up would like to speak? Okay. So the next item on our agenda are our superintendent's report, please. Dr. Jay.
So thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out again. I believe this is the night that a vote will be taken on this. So I have, made a couple of presentations now of two different options, and I just want to be clear that one of the options is for significantly fewer students, especially those moving from Stony Lane to Hamilton. The second option doubles that number, but there are a number of issues within each option that can be amended, and I believe there's an appetite from the school committee for doing just that. As the comments made tonight, one of the suggestions within both presentations, both option 1 and option 2, is for a lottery bus. That would allow for the area where there's the greatest congestion up in Quinnesset Forest Park area and move that down where there's the least congestion to Hamilton. And it's also an option to help stabilize a little bit of the glaring inequity in terms of the number of low-income students that are concentrated at Quinnesset, and possibly move that number a little bit so it's more equally redistributed around the district if we can. But there's a lot to this. Doing that lottery bus uses up a bus. There's the question of grandfathering students. So the argument has been made at one of our meetings quite eloquently that wouldn't it be nice if we're going to have to do this, that students who would be going into grades 3, 4, and 5 next year would be allowed to choose if they wish to stay at their school with transportation provided. That's a lot to ask. We're not a district that has a lot of extra busing. In fact, we have 0 extra busing, and there's almost a guarantee that if we do a grade 3, 4, and 5 grandfathering, and we provide the transportation to the students who have elected to do that, that would take up that bus that we had intended for that lottery bus. So it's really it's impossible necessarily to do both of those things. So there are options within this. There could be a grandfathering of certain grades, but no transportation provided. There could be 0 grandfathering of any student. There could be option 1, which is significantly fewer students than option 2. So you get the idea. There are a number of different ways to do this, and all of them have been discussed at length at the 3 most previous meetings. So I'm going to give it over to Mr. Blasbalg at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So moving on with the agenda, first we have our routine items. If I could ask for a motion to seal the executive session minutes of March 26, 2019. I have a motion from Ms. Hoskins, second from Mr. Robert Jones. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. And I can disclose that no votes were taken in this evening's executive session. Do any members have any items from the consent agenda that they would like to exempt? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. A motion, Ms. Hoskins, second, Ms. Hildebrand. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So next we have item F. Item F is the boundary line adjustments. So let me just start by saying, Dr. Ajay, I want to thank you very much, and your staff as well, particularly your transportation director, on all the hard work that I know has gone into running numbers, analyzing different options, analyzing changes to different options, and giving us, all the information in the public that we can.
I want to give a shout out to Karen Nutini, too. She really organized a lot of this information, too.
Thank you to
I know
Karen.
she's watching right now, so Karen, hi out there.
Thank you, as always. I also want to thank all the members of the public who have emailed us. Different members of the school committee have met with some of you, and also all the people who've come to the microphone and attended our meetings over the past few months. There aren't a lot of things that we do that really get the members of the public involved in the things that we do. I wish it were a little more common on things that aren't as controversial and don't affect you so directly, but we're very pleased to have you here, and please understand that we do listen to each and every one of you, and we do read all the emails that we get, and as I think most of you know, we do try to meet with people when we can. That being said, there is absolutely nothing that we could decide tonight that is going to make every single person who has had a comment to us happy. We can't do things that make everyone happy, and unfortunately doing nothing isn't an option that we can entertain either. So despite our best efforts, no matter what we do, there are going to be people who are disappointed in the decision we make, but we just have to do what we think is best for the district as a whole, and take everything into account as best we can, which I hope we've done. We've spent a lot of time stretching this out, trying to give the public the opportunity to really weigh in on this so that it wasn't a surprise to anyone. So that being said, we need to start the discussion off with something. So I was going to start with a motion of my own for discussion purposes. We can change it, we can amend it, we can do something different, but we have to start. So I'm going to do that. The motion that I'm going to make is that we approve what we've called the superintendent's option number 2, but with no lottery bus, and that we do grandfather grades 3, 4, and 5 with transportation, provided that is doable. If Dr. Ajay were to ever determine that that is impossible to do, you need to get back to us.
Absolutely.
We've run the numbers and we think that it's possible. So that is the motion that I'm going to make right now. And I need a second. I have a second from Ms. Hoskins. So discussion before we go on.
Can I make one quick comment on
Dr.
that?
Ajay, yep.
So on that proposal, particularly without the lottery bus, that would mean in the year 1, because there's about half the students are potentially being grandfathered. Doesn't mean every student will take advantage of that, probably not. But if every student did, we could make it and not go over capacity at any school. Forest Park, in all of this scenario, would still be the highest to capacity. It's interesting because the lowest enrolled school, no matter what happens, but it would be the highest next to its capacity. But as you go to year 3, all of that kind of blends out. And so you'd have 4 schools that would be between like 80 and 89% capacity, and 1 school, Forest Park, would be above 90% capacity. But that's a better situation than we have now. There's more, evenly laid out, at least in terms of capacity to what the building can take. So.
Thank you. And what you just said is basically, for the members, the logic behind me, starting out with this proposal. Looking at all of the numbers, when you take the lottery bus out of the equation, it basically, spreads the enrollment the most evenly of every option that we've looked at. It still leaves Forest Park, particularly in year 1, the highest. Hopefully we don't have to make any further adjustments going forward. It'll take a little time. The idea behind grandfathering is, it is disruptive. We all understand that. It is the closest that we can come to give people an option to try to minimize that disruption as best we can. It's certainly less than ideal. It's going to provide some challenges for the transportation department. I know that, and we're going to need to work on that over the next couple of years. But by the 3rd year, once you look at what the numbers we anticipate will look like, that is going to bring almost all of the schools into the 80s, and it just really accomplishes the most of all the options that we're looking at. As to one of the questions that came up today, why not Quidnesset? Frankly, and it's different than what one of the gentlemen said at the microphone, but to me, moving more students into Quidnesset has the potential of making some of the issues that we've had there that we're working on worse. I don't want to do that. So I'd like to try to keep the Quidnesset population as stable as we can. The lottery bus is not something that is completely off the table. It doesn't mean we can never do it or never look at it again. I'm just not sure that it would accomplish, the goals that we're looking to do in the long run. It's just a little bit too much of a wild card for me. We don't really know who's going to be signing up for that. We don't know what effect that would have. And it doesn't accomplish everything option 2 does when we take the lottery bus out, which means that you'd end up shifting even more kids down to Hamilton and bringing their capacity up higher, while when you take it out, it makes everything a lot more even all across the board. That is my logic behind it, and after having a long speech, I will say, does anyone else have any comments?
I mean, I guess my only comment is I live in the neighborhood. My kids are affected by this decision as well.
Any questions?
So I just want to let people know that it wasn't something we took lightly.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I would just add that in thinking about the long-term consolidation, which I think is an item that is on this committee's, has been on this committee's radar, and I think it still remains a goal for the committee and the superintendent. We've given him to work through, and I think we need to get to that sooner than later, whether it's a new school and some consolidation, or whether it's a consolidation and this committee and the town council and the voters don't approve a new school. I've thought through probably a few different scenarios, through different options, and in all those, these neighborhoods are going to move to Hamilton. It's maybe unfortunate that we're having to advance this a little sooner because of the Forest Park issue, but I think it was something that inevitably would have happened, and so I kind of agree with your logic that if we should just move it more. I support the grandfathering, so parents and families can choose based on their children's needs, based on their relationships, what might work for those kids in the effective grade, and I believe we have an obligation, since we've imposed this, to provide transportation options for those parents. I totally understand the point that was raised and has been raised in emails. My concern about impacting Quidnesset without being able to adequately think through the resourcing that might need to accompany that is problematic. And so I again applaud the superintendent for thinking about this issue ahead of the larger issue, and I'm sure we'll revisit it once the budget and other things come through and the numbers shake out. I would just be hesitant to do that before then, but I don't think it minimizes the point that we have some more work to do about thinking about all our schools and how the town itself has changed, will change, and how the school system needs to support that changing demographics of our community.
I do have one question, though, is that with the grandfathering, and especially from 3 to 5, and I know several families who are not going to take the grandfathering, and when they would need to let the school department know by if we do approve this?
Once this vote occurs, I will be working on this right away tomorrow with the same people that we were congratulating a little earlier, with all of the planning about notifying all of the affected parents, getting their decision on whether they choose to grandfather or not, if that is something that they can do, and then preparing with reports for all of you in upcoming meetings, particularly with our budget in mind, and then as we get closer to the fall, we'll definitely do a lot more with orienting the new students, particularly those who would any student who needs to move. We're going to make sure that they have as smooth a transition as we can, and make sure they're invited to any kind of orientation that we can provide them. So,
Thank you. And I just want to make sure that everyone's clear on what I mean when I say transportation. It's what we've discussed in all the prior meetings, which is that the parent would have to transport their child either to the school if they're doing the grandfathering or to an existing bus stop. We would not be able to run, two bus stops in a neighborhood, one going to one school, one going to another. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. And there's no miscommunication.
I'm sorry. I thought we were busing them.
We would provide, they would be able to go to a bus stop, but we're not going to be able to run two bus
no.
stops.
Well, what we would do is the bus that we had scheduled for the lottery run would actually go
So there
to
would be
those
two.
neighborhoods. So there actually would be two buses.
You would
There
be able to do
yes,
that?
there-
Okay,
there
I'm
would
sorry,
be
miscommunication,
one
then
of those,
take that back.
One of those buses.
All right, sorry.
Right. One of those buses would take the students to Hamilton.
I wasn't
Another,
su- okay,
yes.
So we would just
then
need
there
to
we
make
go.
sure the kids
Okay.
get on the right bus.
Then
not-
we can do that.
Totally easy, but it's doable. So we
Need
can do it.
stickers or something
Yeah.
for the little ones. Okay, sorry about that. All right. So then we're good.
And if I can make just one more comment to dovetail on what Mr. Jones said, we have had a lot of discussions around, consolidating our schools and doing something different with our middle schools in mind. And that is something that we are working on. I know we have discussed it in the past. Right now, we are, getting some feedback from architects, and it's my hope and my expectation that in the next few months or so, we're going to have a lot of attention on some ideas around that. And I think that would be the ideal time, as Mr. Jones said, to really look at how, the low-income population in our town is distributed to different schools. And I think that would be a really good time when we're going to have to make some pretty dramatic changes in how our schools are zoned. That would be a good time to really try to address that issue, more so than this lottery bus could accomplish. So, thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have one more comment. One thing that has come up continuously over the course of the last 3 meetings is the parking and drop-off situation at both Stony Lane and at Hamilton. I just want to make sure that goes on record as something that we're concerned with as well, and will continue to try and work
Absolutely.
on.
So it is something that I'm still discussing with the town manager. When I put out the information to the community about these changes being made, I will also address that issue too in that communication. And he mentioned to me a good number for people to call if they want to call directly to the town, to the state's Department of Transportation to make them aware of our concerns in this district. So, a number of phone calls from North Kingstown couldn't hurt. But he has already been doing that. I just want you to be aware. And we're trying to get better traffic signaling of any kind we can possibly get to slow people down around that intersection at Hamilton. We're going to look at some options for Hamilton with a growing population about maybe staggering pickup times to some extent to make the traffic in the parking lot a little bit better. Stony Lane with this move will now actually get a little bit better in their parking lot because their population is going to be going down a little bit. So that'll help. But there isn't an elementary school that really has it easy in terms of parking when there's a big night for parents to come and that sort of thing. It just gets very congested around the L's. And each of them have their own kinds of ways of accommodating for those kinds of evenings and, early mornings and late afternoons. So,
But honestly, at Stony, it's getting dangerous. The trellis that's in front of where you park on the grass, like cars are, things need to be filled in. It definitely needs some work.
yeah. So you may have noticed, for those of you who are at Stony, there's like an orange fencing. That is not a permanent thing, but we felt we needed to do it because cars were just like going right over the lawn, and it was tearing up the lawn there and all. So it is moved in a little bit to give a car a chance to kind of pull off to the side to allow others through. It's not the permanent solution. I wish I could tell you I could do a repaving job of a lot of our L's and make these things better right away, but it's something that we're looking at, and I hope to have it, particularly at Stony, particularly at Hamilton, to the extent that we can, some improved, front parking lot, ways of access to help accommodate that early morning and the late afternoon pickup, so.
All right, so the motion on the table is, unless there's any other discussion, okay, to approve option 2 with grandfathering for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders with transportation, and to remove the lottery bus from the proposal. So if there's no more discussion, I'd ask all those in favor. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Again, thank you all for your input over the past few weeks. So next, we have item H, which is, we've got a couple resolutions that we're going to send up to our representatives up at the State House on Smith Hill. Item H is with respect to contract continuation. I'd ask for a motion to approve item H.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Hoskins, second, Mr. Robert Jones. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the item I, which is with respect to binding arbitration. Ask for a motion to approve item I.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Hoskins, second, Mr. Jones, Robert Jones. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Mrs. King isn't here this evening, but I don't think we really have,
well-
you have something on, which one, 2018-19?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
1920.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Jones, 1920 school budget.
Yeah. I just want to make a comment on the budget. It's good to see a few red still in the audience and haven't totally left. A couple points. The assistant controller position came about because of a request from the town to move responsibilities from the town to the school department. A significant amount of responsibilities, which frankly, one person arguably maybe not even totally covers it. And so I think if there's a problem with that, you should maybe ask the town about the town financial situation and why the town needed the school department to take over those responsibilities. It's impressive to see people come advocate for their positions. I will tell you, when the superintendent and myself went to argue about the expansion of the 2 least diverse charter schools in our community, which are expanding by another 25%, one that has a requirement to take kids from Washington County despite getting 50% of their applications from outside Washington County. It would be nice to see 40 to 50 people behind us at the state to argue or to support us in that argument about why the state is having schools expand that are taking from districts that are already high performing. I would add that the voices that have gone to ask the state to replace the funding formula that essentially pits districts against districts in a zero-sum game about whose property values have risen more than others, or who on a 3-year-old survey's median income household has risen slightly more than others, and leads to wild variations in the formula. It would be nice to see 50 people behind us when we talk about that at the state. Some of these challenges, I think, come from issues that really need voices from groups that have powerful voices talking to the state as much as talking here locally. It's pretty difficult to do long-term planning, and I understand the frustrations when cuts are made. The reason we have this whole issue about start time buses and the cuts that were made 5-6 years ago, or whenever it was because of another dip in the funding formula. The funding formula ends in a couple years. I've heard no discussion from the state about how it's going to be revisited. It would be helpful if voices of people who are primarily affected by those swings to be talking to folks at the state to fix it. We are somewhat reactive. If you notice this year, yes, there was a change. That change came in February. It's a change that essentially fixed an error last year, which you are correct. I think we cut stuff last year. We changed schedules for essentially something we didn't need to do because the state couldn't get its act together. So again, I appreciate when people come and advocate. I would just say advocacy needs to go across the board and maybe address where some of the issues is. I heard Commissioner Wagner talk about, focusing on the engine that drives things. Well, if the fuel that goes into it is constantly screwed up, your engine doesn't run well. So I would just say, if you look at some things and some decisions we made, which I think you were going to point out that we actually at least rejected the superintendent's recommendation and currently cut the assistant principal position so far, that you also think about advocating where some of these decisions get generated from with your state, with the power you have with the state.
Thank you. I mean, you started the conversation, so I just want to mention, a lot of the concerns that were raised in citizens' comments I share. They're not things that we are ignoring and that we're not concerned about as well. There are some things that were mentioned there that I would love to, be able to address immediately, and we can't necessarily do that. As Mr. Jones mentioned, the assistant principal that was mentioned was in the superintendent's proposed budget, but I made a motion to remove it from the budget we sent to the town council, so that's not there. And I'm not going to go point for point. I mean, there's no real point in that. And I also, but I do want to also point out that with respect to the state funding, the state did not restore all of the funding that they cut from us last year. It's just that the amount that we're getting this year did not include a further reduction that we anticipated, and things turned out to be better than we thought they were going to be. If we, were given the full funding that we had lost in the prior year, we would be definitely looking to, make adjustments in a lot of the areas that you're talking about. We just don't necessarily have the resources for all of those things, but that doesn't mean that we can't look at them in other ways. Anything else on the 1920 budget? Okay. CIP bond, existing bond, or future bond. Next, we have some policies. They're all in your packet. There are no new policies, so we can actually approve them today. Does anyone have any objection to taking them all at once, or did you want to discuss any of them individually? I'm sorry? Oh, there is one new one. I'm sorry. You're right. Sorry. My mistake. Forgot that. Okay. So then we'll take them separately. So I'll make a motion to approve item D1. We have a motion and a second. So it was Ms. Hoskins, second Ms. Hildebrand. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Policy EHKDB1, number D2. If I have a motion to approve. I have a motion. And a second. Again, Ms. Hoskins, second Ms. Hildebrand. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. D3. I can have a motion to approve.
So moved.
So,
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And so this is sorry, my mistake, you're right, a first read on the new special education staffing policy. We'd have to approve this again at our following meeting. So if I could have a motion to approve for a first read of D4.
So moved.
Have a motion. Ms. Hoskins, second Ms. Hildebrand. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And that is the end of our agenda. So I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.